If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This is another of our popular Listener's Choice interviews, which we're playing over the weekend. We've chosen the most popular interviews for you to select the Listener's Choice winner. If you're not sure how the Listener's Choice competition works, have a look at horsechats.com/choice for the rules and the leaderboard. Today's guest is Fiona Hughes. Fiona's an eventing specialist, rider, trainer, coach and coach educator. And Fiona's specialties in teaching beginners, which I really want to drill down into today. How are you today, Fiona?
Very good, Glenys. Very good. I think there was quite a few titles there. We could branch off into any direction we wanted to, really, can't we?
We could probably always come back and do another couple of podcasts anyway, but we'll just stick to the one for now and we'll talk about another one later.
Too easy.
Fiona, we're going to really specialise on teaching beginners, so I want to start with how you started with horses and what your first memories are of riding.
Oh, goodness. Back in the day when my dad, we lived in suburban Sydney actually, and Dad, for I guess once it's in your blood, horses, it's in your blood, and we had a horse in a suburban backyard in Bankstown in Sydney, and I've got photos, and that's the only way I can remember is of me sitting on a horse in the backyard of our house at Bankstown, and I was 2. So it was just the way that Dad went with me. When I was 5, I went to some poor lady's riding, I don't think it was called a riding school, it was pony ride. Mm-hmm. And those ponies, I think, shuddered when they saw my dad's car pull up because I made them trot and canter around that pony ride ring. I don't know how I knew how. So, yeah, that was a long, long time ago. That was back in the 60s. So,
I'm just wondering what would happen with the council now if you took a horse and decided it was going to live in backyard Sydney, how they'd go.
Yeah, I don't think it'd go too well, would it? I think the neighbours would be the biggest problem there because my dad had I think it was probably a quarter or a half acre block. It was like the house was down the front and there was quite a bit of lawn to cut up the back, so I think he was glad that the pony came along and ate the lawn. Maybe that's why I got a horse. I don't know.
Okay. Fiona, it's a long way from having pony rides and keeping a horse in suburban Sydney. What made you have a career with horses? What was the pathway through to that career?
Well, starting out Pony Club, I was with the same Pony Club from the very beginning. Dad was an instructor at Pony Club over at Rossmore, which is on the outskirts of Sydney, and started out with a pony that was 13 hands, and he didn't like jumping, and he sort of got me through until I could walk, trot and canter about. And then, of course, Dad decided in his wisdom that I had to have a pony that liked jumping. I don't know how he knew that I liked jumping, but anyway, I did. And away we went, and she went through until I was like 13 or 14. And then I got my first thoroughbred that wasn't off the track, but it was a thoroughbred that Dad bought from the thoroughbred sales. And Dad sort of rode him at the start. Didn't take long for me to sort of start training him, and then working through Pony Club. And then I got interested in coaching at Pony Club. I think I was thrown into that a little bit by virtue of I was sort of representing at state Pony Club championships and all that sort of thing. And so then it was like, oh, Fiona can take the kid. So I think that's all where we came from with graduating from riding at Pony Club and then teaching at Pony Club, and then I'd teach the kids. Actually, I was talking to Colleen Brooke recently, and we were talking about things that we started out doing, and we both taught the kids from Pony Club on Saturdays, and just sort of did it as a passion.
It's interesting how you get thrown into it, and it's like, oh, you know how to do it, you could teach it. Yeah, and I'm sure you may do, but I think that it becomes a lot more scientific the more you get into it, doesn't it? You've got to have that knowledge, you've got to have the passion, you've got to have the interest. But I think a lot of people start off coaching at Pony Club, and sometimes because of necessity, because they need more coaches.
Absolutely. And that was that was exactly how it ended up with me. And I never actually achieved my pony club instructor certificate because I sort of was not that interested. And once I was old enough to leave pony club, I think I spent a little time there being an associate member and still riding a little bit at pony club. But sort of even then, I was doing things like teaching what we call musical rides, where we went and we even did a display at, there was a big show jumping show once at Homebush, and somebody asked if there was pony club kids that wanted to do a display, and we just had a musical ride that we did, and the kids loved it, and it was just, I guess I got a real kick out of the kids riding there, and that was all part of the enjoyment of teaching or of giving them knowledge or giving them experiences, was the enjoyment of seeing the kids doing it. That was, I guess, what kept me going, kept me interested in it.
And the kids, to me, because I was in a pony club musical ride as well, and we, performed, competed around a bit. It was the whole working together, working as a team, but also learning to ride, push your horse up a bit, slow down a bit, turn a little bit quicker, go, a little bit more into that corner. So you're still learning to ride better, even though you think that all you're doing is a musical ride.
Absolutely. And I think teaching in groups is a very fine art, and teaching, say, I teach at many clinics, junior camps coming up in the summer break, and to teach a group of kids and control them and keep them safe is a very learned skill. So those times at Pony Club, learning spacing and single file, and then teaching them how to ride in the musical ride with the manoeuvres and that sort of thing. It was a very good learning experience, very valuable tool. And then when I went on and achieved my level 1 and then my level 2, to know and have confidence in controlling the class and that sort of thing, and understanding, I guess, the necessities of how to get people to keep control of their horse in a group situation. It is a very learned skill.
Yes, yeah. And I think we'll talk about the teaching the real beginners and the groups and that in a little bit. But just moving on from there, because you went on and you started teaching at Pony Club to go on and become a coach, for people who are starting work in the career, thinking about horses, what are the core skills they need or character traits?
I guess what I believe happens now, it seems to be not as, I'm going to say, accessible that people take up a career in horses. I think you find many of the people that are professionals let's say in teaching, such as, show jumping, or definitely the people that I'm involved in, there seems to be a real break in the middle there of let's say, the more senior professional people, and then the younger ones aren't as many, I feel. And so I think it is a bit of what people have understood is it's a very costly sport, and to make enough money to do it professionally is very, very difficult. And the thing that I think you have to be able to manage the business really well. I think you've got to have, I think now what I've realised is my management skills when I first started out doing it I had no idea of those sorts of planning or even coordinating with my owners and that sort of thing. And so I think there's a lot more to it than when I started. So I think being trained in business and going to TAFE or doing some sort of business course is important, because to keep making money and to keep your head above water and to keep turning up every day and riding horses and knowing that it's all worth it, that's the hard part.
And I think too, that sometimes a lot of people have learned by trial and error, but if they can do that complementary, it's not all about horse riding and horse management and coaching, but if they can do those complementary skills, like you said, the planning, the human resource management, the team leading, the marketing, the financial, all of those things can be complementary. And can support and increase your business, increase your ability to then go out and coach on a broader basis, because you're able to do it, because you're better set up to do it.
Absolutely. In my experience of being a coach and riding horses and competing horses and then training riders, I've had to learn many skills along the way, not only how to coach or not only how to ride. I've had to learn how to become pretty technologically educated as well, how to keep my website updated, how to do bookwork and send out invoices. And those things, even to write an email, 15 years ago was was an achievement.
Yes, yep, for sure.
So communicating and being organised. And I think one of the last working students that I had there a few years back, I don't have any working students anymore, but people that work and ride for you and work alongside you and that sort of thing. I don't have enough horses anymore, but I think one of the skills that I told him that I hope that he took away from spending his apprenticeship with me was learning how to be a problem solver, not only a horse rider.
Yes.
Because I think you've got to have many strings to your bow these days.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Not only, and I think that's the thing, it's life experience that you learn that then adds to your ability to be a good professional in the equestrian world.
Yes, yep. And in your pathway then to learning about business and horses and coaching and everything else, who's been influential there?
Oh, goodness. I think that luckily for me, I had many owners of horses that were very supportive of many things along the way that I learned that helped me become better trained and better organised or more experienced at that sort of thing. So fortunately for me, I had people that came along in my life, owners of horses that were very talented people outside of the horse area that I managed to be steered in the right direction from. I guess horse training, one of the people that is my biggest mentor or my biggest influence in horses is Heath Ryan. He's what I call my ultimate dynamo man because he's just unstoppable. And so I think that tenacity is a big deal for me, just to think, keep going and it's all worth it. And to keep on going even when everything seems to be at its lowest ebb, you've just fallen off third time or whatever, or you've got bucked off on the arena by that horse that you just can't ride or whatever it is, to have that ultimate goal that is just, you're just unstoppable. I think that's what Heath means to me as a mentor. And,
He's certainly got lots of energy. He just always has got lots of energy. You hear him from a mile away and, there's always that energy coming out. And, always know his voice. What about horses have influenced you? Have you got any that you want to mention?
Oh, I think the horses that I really grew up with and really I identify with my training skills and so on are thoroughbreds. And recently I've bred because of the trend, bred many warm bloods and ended up riding many crossbred warm bloods. And I really found it a very different kettle of fish. So I've got to say my go-to horses for my best experiences in my life were thoroughbreds that really just they've got a bottomless pit, and I guess there we go, talking about endless amount of energy again and application, whereas I find that warm blood cross horses have a real button of that's as much as I can give you today. And you've got to have a very measured approach to that training, and you've got to be able to say you've achieved a result today, even though you may not see it today, tomorrow. So they have a different way of learning, I find, with the crossbred style horses.
Yep.
Whereas a thoroughbred horse, you can get that little bit more out of him on the day that you know that you actually made an inroad there in his training. And I think that's in their nature, that's in their metabolism, like God made them that way, I think.
Yeah. And thinking about those horses, what's been your proudest moment?
Oh, well, there's nothing that can overcome seeing Enchanted going around a horse she was a thoroughbred mare that I purchased through George Sanner. She was a show jumper. I purchased her as a 5-year-old, and by the time she was 9, she was winning and placing at 3-star level, and then it was obvious that my time as a professional rider, I was feeling as though, if I had a young up-and-coming rider on her, she'd have a good shot at the Olympics. And that was just about the time of Athens Olympics was coming up. And so Sammy McLeod is now Sammy Birch, who now lives over in the UK. We made an agreement that Sammy would ride her, and she went to Adelaide in the 4-star, and she was third to Stewart. Actually third, Stewart was second, and Boyd Martin was first that year. So then we went to the UK with her, and she went round 2 badmintons. I watched her go around and one Burley 4-star 3-day event. And that was in the time when it was the old 3-day eventing style, which I think is a very good thing that they got rid of that. It was a hard event the year that she went round badminton and did the full roads and tracks and steeplechasing and everything in over her ankle deep mud. And boy, she was a tough mare, big chestnut mare, very warm blood in her type, but not at all in her nature. She was like an old pair of army boots, that thing. She kept going. She was a tough girl. And so that's definitely, there's no going past that horse and the achievement. And Sammy rode her beautifully at that level, and it was an amazing experience to be an owner at badminton and also at Burley. And so I don't think many people can have that in their
No, it's
resume.
pretty special, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. And then I found her sire, actually, Razor Stanza, and went on and bred quite a few of his progeny, trying to reproduce Enchanted, because I felt as though the new style of breeding now with the warm blood crosses, it was exactly what Enchanted was. She was very warm blood type in her body, but I never did reproduce another one, worse luck. She was an amazing horse, once in a lifetime, that one.
Okay, yep.
Wait, can you hear anything? No? That's because we're waiting for someone with a good quality horse product to be advertised here. If that's you, then contact us, horsechats@horsechats.com, and we'll send you the details. Thanks.
What's been your biggest challenge? You know, she's been the best horse, the best thing that happened. What about challenges? Surely it's not been all a fairy tale. Surely it's been a bit harder than that.
Absolutely. I think for me, EI came along in 2007 and some things that were factors leading up to that period of time that really changed everything for me. I virtually had only 1 or 2 horses after that and really never got back to the top level of eventing after that either. So I guess, and the challenge for me was deciding when it was the right time to say, well, I'm no longer competitive at that level, you know. And certainly, I think that would be, for me, I did try to keep producing horses and to get back to the highest level of eventing. I just never really had the passion, I guess, or something really, I just lost that, whatever it was, drive, whatever it was that was in me before that time. I think the challenge there was, am I going to be a rider that's a professional rider anymore? And it was a challenge to decide when that time was up.
Okay. I want to talk to you a bit more then about what you're doing now and about, you do a lot of coaching anyway, but I specifically would like to talk about the beginner riders, the coaching beginner riders, and probably the biggest problem that coaches have teaching beginner riders and what we can do about that.
Look, I think the system of trying to learn how to teach and become qualified in teaching is difficult to train the people to learn how to teach, you know. It's experience that you learn how to teach. And I think there's many people out there that decide they'd like to become a coach, whether it be level 1 or however they choose to go through and achieve their qualifications. I think it's a very difficult thing to learn from no even horsey background. Like, I rode through Pony Club and had been taught since a kid to ride horses. I'd been taught by Colleen Brooke as a kid when I was 13, 14 years old. So I was probably one of those kids that she taught when she was young. And learning to teach horse riding is I think very much of an ongoing process. And certainly I still attend training, coaching courses. And for instance, George Morris will coming over Christmas and that sort of thing. And I definitely go and listen to people like him that are the top of the sport. I've got a rider that I teach, Katie Taliana. She rode at Adelaide 4-star this year. I go and listen to her lessons. So I think it's an ongoing process. You've got to be open to learn. I think the worst thing when I'm trying to help people prepare themselves to be accredited as a coach, I find that the worst possible thing that they say to me is, oh, yes, but when I learnt that, I didn't do it that way. I think the thing that you learn in horses is there are many ways, and there are many ways in which you train a horse, or there are many ways, for instance, there are different types of horses. There's many different types of people to train as well. So I think as soon as you go in to try to learn to be a coach or to try to train to be accredited as a coach, I think you need to go in with an open heart or an open mind towards learning how. Because as soon as you believe that your way is the best way or the only way, or you believe that you don't need to learn more, that's the minute that you stop learning, and then therefore you don't improve. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing that is keeps me inspired to stay in the sport as well, because I really believe that it is a bottomless pit of knowledge. So learning to be a coach, I think you have to be able to say, there's so many things that I need to learn to do this well, but I'm never going to stop learning.
Okay. Now think about as a coach, if you've got a beginner who comes in, city, like no experience with horses, may have seen horses, seen someone riding down the road on a horse, seen something.
Well, your classic example, I'll
beginner.
Give you my classic example. I've got a guy, his son rides. Mm-hmm. He's never really been involved in his son's riding. His wife goes with his son to ride his horses and so on, and drives the car and drives the float, everything like that. And he's just decided at the age of 40, some such number, who knows, I didn't really ask him, that he'd like to try to ride a horse. Mm-hmm. And he's a very fit man. He does push bike riding and goes and does whatever he does. Doesn't just sit in an office. He's a very outdoorsy kind of guy. And for him to teach a guy like him to ride, you have to have many techniques or tactics to teach an adult to ride, which are different techniques or tactics than you use to teach kids. Kids have got to be interested and active and doing, whereas adults have got to understand it quite, let's say, thoroughly in their mind of what they're going to try to do. And if they can understand it and talk about it, often they can carry it out reasonably easy. This guy, luckily for him, has no real fear, and I think fear comes with experience. Sometimes you can have bad experiences, and to overcome fear, that's a whole more difficult task to teach people how to overcome fear. But luckily I find most adult learners that decide that they're going to learn to ride a horse come in without a lot of previous experience. They're actually really exciting to teach because they're quite strong and can do things quite easily. Yep. So I think each stage of learning, everybody has a different weakness or strength.
When they come in for their first lesson, do you start them on the lunge, or how do you actually start them?
Yeah. Absolutely. And even if I had a bounded arena, my arena we canter across the dressage arena and canter through the dressage arena and jumps and do all of that. So it's not a bounded arena. I've never actually taught in a bounded arena. And I've actually had a round yard and never actually taught in a round yard. I've always taught lunging the horse in an arena, and I've taught my style of teaching from the start is teach people to try to start learning to rise to the trot by standing up and sitting down at the walk and stuff like that, and learning how to use their legs and their balance. And then until they've got their legs and their balance in the lower part of their seat and their legs and that, I don't let them have the reins. So But I only ever teach on a very well-educated horse on the lunge, and that's the key to it. If you've got a horse that's not very good at lunging and you can't control him well, you put your rider at risk, and then you create situations where you've got danger, and danger is when people won't learn, they can't learn that. So
and that's not very good for the sport either. If people come in and they say, I rode a horse once and I fell off, it's not a very good thing for the sport. But if they can ride and be confident and know that they're going to be safe, they're going to be a lot more confident then to come back and continue to learn.
I find it really quite funny. Down here in Sydney, I have an ad in the Yellow Pages, and I get quite a number of calls for people that want to take their kid on a trail ride, and I say, oh, look, no, I only teach riding lessons. Oh, we just want to go and ride a horse. We don't want to spend money learning how to do it. And my answer to that is, if your kid wanted to learn to drive a car, would you just say, here's the keys, off you go down the driveway and go for your life?
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't. You'd try to give them knowledge and make sure that they were in a safe environment, so that the first thing they didn't do was reverse out into a line of traffic and create a crash. Definitely.
It's a good scenario. Good analogy, something to think about, isn't it?
That people, they're so like to ride a horse, they see people do it on the television and so on, and it looks easy. Looks easy. I think for me, I do a thing called Sit Tight Radio and do a lot of commentary of the big 3-day events and so on around Australia. We've just finished Adelaide, and I also was down at Wallaby Hill, and I think the most thing that rings true for me with watching people ride horses, you know that it's really, really good when it looks easy. You know that somebody's very bloody good at what they're doing when it looks effortless.
And when people say it's only that rider just sits there, the horse does all the work. Right. You just go, yep, that's exactly what we want.
They're the ones that are actually really good at it, and you will never do that. That's not going to. If you don't know what they're doing, you're not going to achieve it in a big hurry, because if you can't see, they're very finite details of riding horses. And I guess when the Olympics come on and everybody watches it on the television, that's very inspirational for many people often, and that's when you'll get lots of people ringing up and saying, oh, I'd love it if my kid could ride horses. And how many lessons will it take for my kid to learn to ride a horse? That's a good one too, isn't it?
Yes. At what level? Yep. If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, horsechats.com. Fiona, thinking about the future, what do you plan for Sit Trot Radio? What do you plan for yourself? Tell us a little bit about that next 12 months or go on from there.
Sit Trot Radio's been going now for 3 years. That's actually the 4th Adelaide I've done, and I've got a team of commentators with me that come around to the events. I have sort of different ones. I've got a couple of Victorians that come with me to the southern events, and it is growing. It's great fun. It's great fun and hard work and all of those things that horses are in my life that I've gotten used to. The fact that often it doesn't make enough money, and so on, so that's the ongoing theme. I'd like to see it grow into something where we've got the World Equestrian Games coming up in August this year in America, and so I'd like to be able to have Sit Tight Radio commentate that over the vision. But I think it'll be a little bit like Roy and HG when they would commentate over the top of the football and people would tune into that. I think Sit Tight Radio is not just, oh, yes, she's jumped number 1. It's much more of entertaining. I think we could call it infotainment, possibly. It's got a lot of information, but it's entertaining as well. That is a passion more than a money-making venture. It's like possibly like most things in horses. It's a money-burning venture.
For sure.
But, that's certainly something in the next 12 months that I would like to I'd like to achieve. That's what my goal is for this year with Sit Tight Radio. Whether or not I can swing it, I've got some irons in the fire to try to get the wheels in motion for that, but I'm yet to sort of string it all together. But yeah, and with my teaching, as you say, I do teach a lot of people from the very beginning of riding, and I teach a lot of kids, and I also teach many adult learners, and often they'll be parents of kids that are riding at whatever level. I still enjoy watching the people that you're teaching, their fulfilment of learning to do a nice canter transition or whatever it is. But just because I teach lots of beginners doesn't mean that I'm happy to just sort of stop trying to teach at the top level, at the elite level of the sport as well. Like I want to keep all of those interests strong. And lots of strings in my bow, I guess, there.
All right. Now, Fiona, can you sum up your philosophy into a lesson today for our listeners, please?
Philosophy on riding horses or teaching people to ride horses?
Both.
I guess a philosophy of horses for me is that there is no limit to the amount of information or education that you need to have to try to go from, let's say, the beginning levels of your riding or even your education as a coach to achieving step by step and working really hard at it. You know, I teach a lot of people to try to gain their qualification to become a coach, and they try really hard to sort of achieve it, but then they seem to lose interest in training. I think you've got to keep being a sponge and keep soaking up all of the and sometimes I guess things come along that seem to be the newest, latest and greatest thing, like plastic stirrups or some such things like that, and you see the fashions and fads come and go, and I think what we've got to do is, as let's say senior members of the sport, is just try to sort of keep sticking to the quality of the training. So I guess being somebody who keeps on reinventing themselves and being able to keep up is my philosophy on what I want to do with my training of riders. Anyway, I still do ride. I've got a horse that I ride at home, but I don't do a lot of competitions. But I think it's just keep trying to have your book open and keep trying to add more information into it, whether it be about riding or whether it be about anything, you know, being able to be a better communicator and so on and so forth. So, I guess it's not a very succinct or clear philosophy. I guess my philosophy is be open.
Okay. No, I think that's good. Having your book open, keep learning, sticking to the quality of the training. I think, you know, you've sort of said that right through. And I think that pretty much sums it up for the listeners. That's great. All right, Fiona, how can people contact you?
Contact information, well, of course, good old Facebook. Facebook is amazing.
Is that under your own name?
Social media.
Yep.
And Sit Tight Radio has its own Facebook page, and I have a Facebook page where I do a bit of promotion of that. We've got early coming into the new year, Mirrabooka camp where the kids all come down to Maruya, and I do a bit of promotion of all of that sort of thing there with Facebook. But, of course, I do have the website of my own, but Sit Tight Radio has a website as well, and that keeps me entertained. But I think most people these days, social media is such an easy way to contact people or find people, you know, like we've all got our websites that we've got our qualifications on, you know, Equestrian Australia and that sort of thing. But I don't know that people find that as easy to just, you know, punch in a name or even Equestrian or something like that. Good old Google can find most people these days.
I was going to say your details will be available on horsechats.com/Fiona Hughes as well when we put up a page for you. So just in case anyone's missed your details, they can go to that website and have a look as well.
Oh, that's great. horsechats.com.
Yep, /Fiona. No, /Fiona Hughes. Yep.
Very good. I'll write that down myself.
All right, Fiona, thanks very much for talking to us today. Certainly engaging talking to you. We're looking forward to talking to you again sometime.
Thank you, Glenys. Thanks so much. It's been great.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Now, if you're still there, you probably know that I'm absolutely passionate about education within the horse industry. That's why I host this podcast. My other venture is Online Horse College. Have a look now at onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.